SCP-054. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures. Subject is held in a watertight isolation room outfitted with specialized climate control equipment. An ornate fountain filled with water stands in the center of the enclosure. Maintenance personnel are required to wear NBC suits while inside the containment area and must spend 10 minutes in a special drawing room after exiting. In the event of a breach, the surrounding area should be evacuated and the enclosure should flush the liquid nitrogen. The Foundation's chemical levels and volume are to be monitored and maintained. Spring water from Redacted should be used as SCP-054 is highly sensitive to hydrological conditions. SCP-054 has developed a mistrust for human males during its confinement, thus assigning a female personnel is recommended. Description: out of the water, the subject most often appears as a female humanoid with a mean volume of 90 liters, comprised entirely of water. Other forms are possible, commonly geometrically shaped. When it enters a body of water, it becomes indistinguishable from its surroundings. The subject must periodically return to the body of water in order to maintain its volume due to evaporation. Initially found in Redacted, it was moved from Site-04 for further testing. The subject was initially curious about Foundation personnel and seemed to enjoy interacting with maintenance staff and researchers, mimicking their form. After a number of weeks, the creature apparently felt comfortable enough to remain out of the water during routine monitoring, though it retreated when attempts were made to study its composition. SCP-054 is apparently composed of normal water, and no detectable differences compared to the ordinary spring water from the same source. No thermal, electromagnetic, biological, or any other phenomenon has ever been detected in its body that would suggest how it animates. Water lost by SCP-054 to evaporate exhibits no special property when condensed. Experiments with SCP-054 halted following data expunged, 2 researchers injured. After this incident, containment protocols were updated, subject therefore exhibited signs of mistrust and aggression around male personnel, which made up the majority of the original research staff. Subjects were classified Euclid. Partial transcript Audiolog 054-A. Water loss experiment. Subject becomes withdrawn and inactive when denied access to water. Its compact shape is theorized to reduce surface area exposed to evaporation. For the first few days, it moved eagerly to greet anyone entering its enclosure and behaved excitably. Possibly indicates an understanding by the subject that we controlled its access to water supplies. Subject to cease this behavior yesterday, presumably to recognize that no help was forthcoming. Temperature extremes testing. We got authorization to attempt sub-zero testing this morning. Subject became lethargic and the temperature fell and froze completely after Redacted. Spectroscopic to the ice crystal revealed no abnormalities. Ice chips were collected for study. This is in stark contrast to its behavior in the 95-degree test when it becomes aggressive and attempted to escape its enclosure. We've submitted a work order to combine the climate control equipment of the subject's standard closure, as it begun to resist efforts to transport its experimental chambers with increasingly desperate behavior. Memory and conditioning behavior. Subject has proven exceptionally adept in navigating complex mazes and solving puzzles. Dr. Seskil has finally overcome the problem of motivating the subject by application of electric shocks and/or celiac dissociation. He joked that we should have it trained to fetch in no time, and after observing his methods, I think he might be right. Note, subject to be allowed a 48-hour recuperating period seemed to be lagging in its progress in the end of the week's experimentation. Acid-base incorporation experiment. Last log entry. I am starting with a 05M HCl solution. I have no idea what will happen, but if this thing incorporates homeostatic mechanisms like I suspect, then it would become short. Insight into its maintaining its form. Temperature in the closure has been lowered to 270 Kelvin. Self-control 54 is increasingly erratic behavior. Addendum 054-B. After 5 years, no incident, subject rating has been downgraded to safe on recommendation of Dr. Redacted. Experiments will resume when the SPC Auspices Biology Unit E7. Caution should be exercised when interacting with the subject.